D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick 1025. The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. We hope you are having a wonderful start to your Tuesday. It's hot out there. I like it. Nearly 80 degrees. It probably won't last, but enjoy it while you can.
It's so nice to walk out there and not
to
have the cold hit you.
Perfect weather.
You may have heard that yesterday was Willie Donick's birthday, and he told us that his daughter Evie was planning some sort of surprise gathering, and then we didn't hear from Willie until like noon today.
Rough day, huh?
We thought Willie was on top.
Conclusions.
We thought Willie was on top of a building.
I thought Willie
passed out.
Had the bender to end all benders. Too many yellow Gatorades, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Forget hangover. Willie was going to start something totally different.
We thought Willie was missing.
Yeah.
But he's here. He made it.
Yeah, I was surprised. I did get you guys were asking yesterday, is this a surprise party? And I was like, no. And then sure enough,
bam.
It was. My daughter Evie and her wing people, her roommates, they got me. Hook, line, and sinker.
That's what they're supposed to do, man.
Yeah.
That's what they're supposed to do. So I'm sure you enjoyed it.
Did you have a good time?
It was a great time. Yeah, it was a good time. And some good college hoops last night. Arizona is no longer unbeaten.
And did you notice something at the end of that game?
Stop it.
Did the Kansas fans storm the court?
No, and
Stop
I think that's
they didn't.
That's what D-Mace has issues with
that's
that.
interesting.
Because here's the thing. Here's the thing.
That's a tough place to win. You expect to win there.
I get that. I understand it. But sometimes you got to let students that are cheering for their team be students. And some students choose to rush the floor. I guarantee you, because it's not like, Carolina and Duke played last year. They rushed the court and everybody forgot about it. But everybody's been talking about this Duke, North Carolina rushing a court. Don't you think they had a talk and say, if we win, we ain't going to rush the court, that student body? Because we don't want to be like Duke, like North Carolina. We want to be the upstanding ones.
How does that talk work? They just start the word through the stands?
Yes, just start the word.
Like, we're not going.
We're not doing it. We are that fan base that is not going to do it.
Or maybe Kansas fans hold themselves to higher standards.
I guarantee you, I can go on.
North Carolina
fans. Here's the really good thing. Here's the really good thing about Google, that you can type it in and you can see the last time.
I will tell you the last time Duke fans stormed the court.
No, not Duke. I'm saying like Kansas fans or any fan out there, like fan base. We can Google and see the last time they stormed the court and why.
Okay, so when was the last time Kansas
I'm saying
fans
we
stormed the court?
can. I will do. I'm gonna get it quickly.
All right,
but I'm gonna let you talk about Duke.
No, we don't need to do that. We don't need to do that. But I'm just saying.
Okay,
Respect to Kansas fans. Knocking off the #1 team in the country, the undefeated Arizona Wildcats, and staying in their seats. Good for you, Kansas fans. That's how it's done when you've been there before. That's how it's done. And I don't even really like Kansas, but good for you, Kansas. For our Jayhawks fans out there, you did the right thing. Okay.
Can we get a little shout out for the Vanderbilt women?
Oh, absolutely. Michaela Blakes.
They put on a show.
Boy.
Audrey Galvin, she had 30
she's really
as
good.
well, and she's a freshman.
Yes.
She's really good. And she was not the 5-star recruit. She's a fun story because she was just a great find by Shea Ralph. But, man, that was a show. They just absolutely annihilated Oklahoma. That's how you do it. And Michaela Blakes, who had 40.
Her 8th 30-point game of the season.
Yeah. She
got the best scoop layup since George Gervin. Like she's so good.
They don't even know who George Gervin is.
I know who George Gervin is.
Come on, you got to know about the Iceman.
The Iceman.
I'm dating myself. The Iceman, George Gervin.
I may be young, but I'm not naive.
Okay, so you've seen the film,
yes,
of the Iceman.
Yes,
yeah. The thing he had like a more of a soft flip, the finger roll. Michaela Blake, though, once she gets around the corner and she can shoot it from like her hip or from her knee almost, but doesn't matter how low it is. If she's got a step, she's so good at scooping it in there. You have no way of defending it unless you foul her, and so, man, she is something. She is something.
If you haven't had the opportunity,
so she had 34 last night. Galvin with 30. Holy cow!
If you haven't had the opportunity to watch Michaela Blakes play basketball in person, I suggest you do so. She is fabulous. So the Vanderbilt women win 102-86 against Oklahoma. The men are back in action tonight, taking on Auburn. A 6 p.m. tip-off. Pregame show starts at 5:30 right here on 102.5 The Game. So we will take you right up to Vanderbilt pregame as the men take on Auburn, looking to bounce back from their loss.
Let's see if they can get right. This will be another. I don't know if they're getting either of the guys back that have been out for a while. Everybody's asking every day, are they going to play? But
I need them back.
Yeah. Auburn can be tough. Auburn has won at Florida. Florida is a weird team that's lost more games than they should. I think Florida is as good as anybody. But this is a big test tonight for Vanderbilt.
And we will get to the Vanderbilt men later in the program. ESPN football analyst Trevor Matich will join us for his weekly chat at 4:20. But let's start with this question. Are either of you familiar with the butterfly effect?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not talking about the 2004 sci-fi thriller starring Ashton Kutcher.
That was pretty good, too.
I don't remember that movie. I don't know if I've ever seen it, and if I have, it was a long time ago. But I'm not talking about the butterfly effect, the movie. The original concept has been misinterpreted in popular culture, but most people know the butterfly effect as the idea that a minor change in circumstances can cause a large change in outcome. And in the wake of the Seattle Seahawks winning the Super Bowl on Sunday, I've been seeing a lot of this regarding Sam Darnold. And Sam Darnold's story, his redemption arc, which was completed by him winning the Super Bowl on his 5th team, by the way, the first starting quarterback in NFL history to win a Super Bowl on his 5th team or later. So the redemption arc of Sam Darnold, it's a fabulous story. He's the ultimate nobody believed in me guy. But as our show was ending yesterday, we received a text from Tim. Thank you, Tim, by the way, if you're listening. And Tim said, quote, "The fact is, Tennessee had a shot at Sam Darnold in free agency and could have traded the pick away for 4 premium picks," end quote. So let's humor Tim and all of you who share this belief. Let's call it the Sam Darnold butterfly effect. Let's say that Sam Darnold chose the Titans in free agency and they traded the number 1 overall pick to the New York Giants. How would the trajectory of the Tennessee Titans have changed? 615-737-1025. Willie, why don't you start by answering that question?
Well, I do think it's an interesting question, but I'm trying to remind myself of the timing of it. So let's start with this. If they had gone out and gotten Darnold, that would have taken them out of being interested in a quarterback with the first pick, right?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure we can assume that if they had gone out and signed Darnold, which we don't know if Darnold would have been really interested in the Titans with the options that he had, but let's assume for a second that he did, and maybe you just spent so much he couldn't turn it down. Would the Giants have offered them that pick? That series of picks, knowing that they had Darnold? Because that would happen before the draft, right? The free agency happens before the draft.
Yes.
So they would have already had Darnold in tow, and they could have traded the first pick. But I'm just wondering if anybody would have said, yeah, we want that first pick and we'll go with it. Would they have offered the same package? Would they have had the same leverage? Because they had the leverage of saying, no, we're going to take Cam Ward. We're going to take the one quarterback that is worthy of that pick. And so you have to wrestle it from us. So therefore the offer is bigger. So I don't know if you can assume that they could have had Darnold and the same package of picks. Because if they did, then that's a fair thing to throw out there. I don't think the season would have gone that much better. Darnold would have been worth a couple of wins, but I don't think it would have made that big of a difference in this year's team. But if you're arguing that Darnold plus whatever they could have gotten for the first pick would have moved them ahead, then that's a fair argument.
So what you're saying is that had the Titans signed Sam Darnold in free agency, the Giants may not have had to offer that package to move up to number 1 overall because Cam Ward could have been available to them at number 3.
Exactly.
Right, because
Or
they
two.
know they would have known that the Titans weren't taking a quarterback. With that
Right.
first
And
pick.
remember, the Jaguars traded up to take Travis Hunter
Mhm.
at number 2. And the Jaguars have a quarterback.
Right. So in theory, the Giants could have waited and taken Ward at 3. Right? If that
So
in
the
theory,
that
package,
went.
yes.
the package wouldn't have been as large.
if anything.
Yeah.
Right. They could have maybe just rolled the dice and said, well, the Titans aren't going to take a quarterback and the Jags aren't going to take a quarterback. Maybe somebody else would trade up. So if anything, maybe they'd make a deal for number 2. Maybe they make that deal with Jacksonville.
Yeah. Because they wouldn't have to spend the capital to move up to number 1, knowing that the Titans aren't taking a quarterback. And I know there are a lot of people that are going to say, well, they were going to give up this for Cam, so somebody would have gave it up. And these are the same people that didn't think Cam was a top 10 pick in last year's draft. There's many people that didn't. There was one team that wanted to move up that far to get Cam Ward. Now, if you got Darnold, they don't feel they have to move up to number 1. And based upon what everybody was saying, wasn't nobody going to move from 6, 7, 8, or 9 to get up to number 1 to get Cam Ward. So getting Darnold via free agency, I'm not going to say that would have drastically changed the Titans and how they or the picks they would have gotten. Because I'm under the assumption is, like Willie said, if I knew you didn't need a quarterback, why am I going to offer the world? Because I'm only bidding with myself, because nobody else is going to want to move up to that top spot based upon what everybody was saying. Cam really wasn't a top 10 pick. They were not going to give that up just to move up to number 1, knowing that the first 2 teams on that list didn't need a quarterback.
So let's operate off that premise. Let's say the Titans sign Sam Darnold in free agency and the Giants don't feel the need to make that deal. Eli on our text line, for what it's worth, says the Browns would have been a threat to the Giants and they would have given them the offer. Another texter said they would have had to flirt with a team behind the Giants that needed a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
But
either way, the Titans don't get the package that was offered to them by not signing Darnold.
Okay, so let's operate off that premise, that it's simply the Titans decide not to draft Cam Ward with the number 1 overall pick. They sign Sam Darnold in free agency. Who did the Titans take with the number 1 pick?
If they stay at number 1, wow.
Do they take Travis Hunter? Do they take Abdul Carter?
I think they take Abdul Carter.
Okay.
But he did have some injury history. I'm not sure if they would have taken Travis Hunter number 1. They could have. But I'm looking more so at a rush in that's going to affect the game the way they want to affect the game from a defensive standpoint. And the best guy last year was Abdul Carter. So
it's probably one of the 2, right?
Yes, because
I think we can deduce that that's probably who you're looking at.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Either Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. Okay, so let's again operate off this premise because we're doing the butterfly effect, right?
Mhm.
Right.
The Titans sign Sam Darnold in free agency. They use the number 1 overall pick. They draft either Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. How is the Titans season different? That's not a rhetorical question. That's a legitimate question. How is the Titans season different if that's what happens?
If you went into it saying we've got Darnold and you shopped the number 1 pick, then it would have been interesting to see if they could have found somebody to trade for the number 1 pick, whether they were going after Ward. Maybe it's somebody other than the Giants that made a play for Ward. We won't know, because would somebody have fallen in love with Ward enough to give them a significant package? That is something we will never know in the butterfly effect. But I think we can conclude that the Giants would not have had to go all in on that first pick unless they really felt like other teams would have made the play. But I just didn't sense that. back then.
One texter says, who is to say that the Titans would not tell the other teams that they would still draft the highest quarterback regardless if they had signed Sam Darnold?
They ain't doing that.
But if you
Nobody's
invest in
believing
what
you.
it would have taken to sign
Exactly.
Darnold, I don't know that would have been a smart play to then turn around
and draft a
and try
quarterback.
to draft Ward. Yeah.
But this is a popular question when Titans fans and others have this debate. How many more wins would the Titans have had in 2025 with Sam Darnold instead of Cam Ward? That's a popular question, and I'm not really sure exactly what the answer is.
I think the answer is they would have won more. They should win more.
I would agree with that. But how much more?
But would they have set themselves up to where they're speeding up their rebuild? I don't know. I mean, maybe they win 6 and they're drafting a lot lower than they're drafting this year. I don't think Sam Darnold is a guy that elevates your whole roster. I think he's a guy that is a good fit on a good roster. And obviously the Seahawks were proven right with that by jumping out and grabbing him. They put a good team around him and they won the whole thing. He was good. He's not a superstar, but he's a very good starting quarterback.
The problem is, and Willie, you'll appreciate this. Derek, maybe not so much. The problem is that in football, there is not a publicly accessible, all-encompassing value stat like wins above replacement, WAR in baseball. So it's hard to deduce how many wins Sam Darnold was responsible for the Seattle Seahawks this season. The Seahawks were 10-7 the year before Sam Darnold arrived. They were not a playoff team, but they were not a 3-14, 4-13 team. They were 10-7. I don't think you can say, well, Sam Darnold replaced Geno Smith at quarterback, and therefore Sam Darnold added 4 wins to the Seahawks total. I think it's a lot more nuanced than that. As you saw on Sunday, the Seahawks have an outstanding defense. They also have great special teams. All 3 phases of the Seahawks game are excellent. Sam Darnold certainly leveled up the Seattle Seahawks. Jackson Smith-Njigba was incredible this season. He did not have his best game in the Super Bowl, but he was Offensive Player of the Year, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was a 1,700-yard receiver, nearly 1,800-yard receiver this season.
Mm-hmm.
He was an 1,100-yard receiver with Geno Smith. Sam Darnold helped Jackson Smith-Njigba. I will not argue against that. But Jackson Smith-Njigba, even with Geno Smith, was an 1,100-yard receiver. So I would love to know. I searched far and wide for this last night. I was trying to find the equivalent of wins above replacement in baseball for football that's publicly available to see how many wins Sam Darnold added to the Seahawks total, and I was unable to find it. So it's an interesting debate because Titans fans will say, well, had he come here, they would have won 7 games. Or this team was bad. Even with Sam Darnold, their ceiling would have been 5 wins. I don't know how many. I don't know how you can quantify it. I don't know if you really can quantify it.
No, I think it's a prime example of, really 2 teams that he went to, Minnesota and now Seattle. These were teams that in their mind, they felt that they were, that 1 or 2 guys away, plugging 1 or 2 holes away from really giving this a push. Not necessarily saying we're going to win a Super Bowl, but we're going to put ourselves in the best position to win, win that trophy that everybody wants. Whether it was, that's why people were so shocked at the way he played against Minnesota last year. When he was with Minnesota last year in the second round, when I think they had a first round bye last year.
No, they blew it.
Yeah, you're right. They blew it. And they end up having to play in the first
because
round.
of him.
And they got beat. Absolutely. And they end up getting beat. So then and that's why Minnesota sort of went away from him because they had this young quarterback that they thought was their guy, but they felt that their team was ready. And Darnold had the first shot at it, and he didn't do it. So they moved on. Then he goes to another team that they feel they are 1 or 2, maybe 3 guys away. And they plug those 3 holes, and then they move and they go and they win the championship. his play allowed them, I think, to do some things offensively that they probably couldn't do with Geno Smith. Um, and he was able to go out there and run the offense the way that it needed to be ran. And they had enough talent. They had more than enough talent that if he was off somewhat, that the talent around him would make up for it. And it did.
615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHunted.com. We're playing the Sam Darnold butterfly effect. Let's say in an alternate universe, the Tennessee Titans would have signed Sam Darnold in free agency. How would the trajectory of the Titans have changed if they had landed Darnold in free agency last year? 615-737-1025. Again, our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHunted.com. You can register today for Stars Trivia Night at Boom Balls in East Nashville on Thursday, February 19th. That's a week from Thursday. It will be a night full of fun, food, and prizes, all while supporting Stars Nashville, a nonprofit providing free mental health support for students in over 200 schools across Middle Tennessee. For more details and how to register, visit thegamenashville.com/events.
Do you think?
Hey, this is Derek Mason. If you injured yourself in a motorcycle accident, go to lawtigers.com for your free case evaluation. Even if your accident was months ago, you have nothing to lose by calling Law Tigers. Insurance companies want to pay out as little as possible, or frankly, nothing at all. But Law Tigers fights to get you the compensation you deserve, and they don't get paid until your case has been settled. Look, they know how much your bike gear is worth to you, so they will help you get it all repaired, or better yet, replaced. So call 1-800-LAW-TIGERS or visit lawtigers.com. Law Tigers is powered by Freeman and Fuson. You can find them in Nashville at 2126 21st Ave South. And also, don't forget, go to predatorsbike.com to enter to win a custom Nashville Predator Indian motorcycle signed by the entire team, courtesy of Law Tigers in Music City, Indian. That's Law Tigers, Tennessee's motorcycle lawyers.
I was looking at my free agent options and kind of talking with my agent about it, and then all of a sudden we hear the news that Gino's getting traded, and that was kind of the okay, like Seattle could be a potential spot. And when I just found out about kind of the mutual interest that both sides had to getting the deal done, like that was something that that was really important to me. Having somebody that also wanted me there, and to be able to have an impact, as best I can. And the other thing too is, I mean, there's great players on defense, great players on offense. I feel like Coach McDonald's scheme on defense was really hard to go against last year. And I know, Coach Clint Kubiak, I know him from 23 in San Francisco, when we made that run there. And so I'm pretty familiar with the system. So I think, all those factors combined, man, that was really the reason why I fell in love with kind of the decision to come to Seattle.
That was Sam Darnold before the season, explaining his decision to sign with the Seattle Seahawks. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you, playing a little game I call the Sam Darnold butterfly effect. Let's say in an alternate universe, the Tennessee Titans would have landed Sam Darnold in free agency instead of the Seattle Seahawks, which means he's starting at quarterback for the Titans instead of Cam Ward. How would the trajectory of the Titans have changed if they had landed Sam Darnold last year? Willie, during the break, you brought up two key questions.
Yeah, I think it boils down to this. What would you rather have? Because I don't know that the real discussion is how well would the Titans have done last year, because that's not as important as how they're going to be in the next 2 or 3 years, right? What's the best pathway back to contention? Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. I'd say so.
Like if you're in the world of if they had just signed Darnold and taken whatever they got for him, and you think they were going to make the playoffs last year or something like that, I think that's a little too rich. But I think it's a fair discussion of, here's the question. Darnold plus the package you could have gotten for the first overall pick, and we don't know how it would have changed or not changed, but let's just say you got something there by moving down a slot or two, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which they don't get here. They don't get the way they did it. Darnold plus the package for the first. And then in theory, you would be picking lower in this coming draft, right? At least with your own pick. You'd have the package of what you received plus your own pick, which, let's say Darnold was worth 3 wins and you win 6 or 7, somewhere in there. See, I don't say anything about 6,
7.
Okay, I wasn't going to do it, but that versus what they have, and that's Ward and the 4th pick this year. I think it's a fair question to say what's better, what would have been better for the long term. And so the secondary question is, do you see Ward as a guy that will eventually reach, maybe exceed what Darnold is now? And remember, Darnold failed many years before he got to where he is now.
Yeah, and to answer the first question, I don't think we know, because, including myself, I didn't think that Sam Darnold could get his team to this point. He ended up being sort of this mini journeyman, going from one team to another till he finally lands in a place where he has an opportunity and take full advantage of it, and they win a Super Bowl. But I'm not sure, after the Jets parted ways with him and he said he was seeing ghosts, there's nobody that can say, oh, I believe Sam Darnold's going to win a Super Bowl. No, people have wrote him off. Now, when he went to Minnesota, it was like, okay, this guy, he has something. But still, there were many people that were like, we need to see him do it again, me included. And he's went and done that. But I can't say definitively that Cam will or will not be better than what Sam Darnold is right now. We all got to remember too, Sam Darnold's been in the league, 6 years? Somewhere 8.
Yeah.
So he's developed. He's had his opportunity to develop, and this is who he is as a quarterback. So I'm not sure that question can be truly, we can sit here and say he may be or may not be, but we really don't know. Now, as far as the package, what they would have gotten or what they could have gotten, again, we know you got a quarterback. And remember, Cleveland was already at 2. So if Cleveland needed a quarterback, they would have had an opportunity to draft Cam Ward if indeed they needed a quarterback.
Yeah.
They moved down to allow Jacksonville to move.
Yeah,
up.
they passed on going for the quarterback. And
Exactly.
so that's what we don't know is would Cleveland have said, oh, well, they're not going to take Ward.
Mm-hmm.
So let's make our play for Ward, and maybe Cleveland makes a play. I don't know.
And maybe
the Giants and the Browns, in theory, could have been each offering the Titans something to move up to take Ward, if that's the direction they wanted to go, knowing that the Titans weren't going to take Ward. So
but it seems like
if you had 2 teams that wanted Ward, they could have gotten something for that pick. Maybe,
but it didn't seem
unless
like
they punted, unless they didn't believe in Ward, they could have said, "Well, we'll just pass."
Yeah, but it didn't seem like. At least I don't think that Cleveland was pushing to draft Cam Ward with the 2nd pick or drafting the quarterback with the 5th pick. They had an opportunity to draft the quarterback at the 5th pick and they didn't. They chose to go another route. So we don't even know if Cleveland would have been interested in drafting Cam Ward. They didn't, to my knowledge, they didn't offer a package to the Titans to move up one spot to get Cam Ward, or maybe they wanted too much and Cleveland wasn't going to do that. So I'm not sure if they would have got the package or not. But what I am looking at is this team, period. Even if they would have moved off that spot and got some draft picks, how much would that have changed their team, period? Like in other areas, because they still had the same injured guys. They still had, Snead still wasn't going to be out there.
Right.
Really still got hurt.
A whole list of problems.
It was still a bunch of problems that this team would have had. Now, yeah, I think Sam Darnold would have contributed to about 3 wins. But how many games did they win this year?
3.
So they would have been 6-11 or 5-12. They still would have been a team picking in the top 5. And it would have taken them some years. And I get it. Maybe that 2nd year after Darnold was here, it would have popped. But that also can happen with Cam Ward as well.
So let's say that you had that you had Darnold, then the package you got for the first pick. So let's just say you end up with somebody this may be the perfect storm. Let's say you did get something similar. You could have ended up with somebody like Hunter or
let's assume
somebody that was picked in the first 6, 7, 8 picks. You would have had one of those guys.
Let's assume, because
alongside of Darnold.
Remember the report that the Giants this was from Adam Schefter on the night of the draft, the first round of the draft, that the Giants reportedly offered the Titans their first round pick this year and next year. So let's assume that the Giants would have taken Abdul Carter at 3, because that's who the Giants took at 3, just for the sake of this exercise. Yeah. So let's assume you continue, but let's assume it's Abdul Carter.
Okay, so if you could have found a way for the Giants to offer the same thing, which I don't know that you could have known for sure, but if you did, then that's a pretty strong argument that going forward, Darnold, Abdul Carter, then the Giants pick this year, which is
number
high,
5.
Which is number 5. So that's a top 5 pick, plus your first pick, which you still have, which let's say would be theoretically a little lower if Darnold got you a couple more wins and you win 6 or 7, and you're picking 10th or 12th. But that's still a pretty strong package to bring in. Plus, you would have had another 2nd-round pick from the Giants last year, a high 2nd-round pick. That would be on your team already. You would know what you have. And then you would have the Giants' 2nd-round pick this coming year, which is a high 2nd-round pick. So from that standpoint on what was the better play, it's probably hard to argue that you're not in better shape with Darnold. The question is, could the roster catch up in time for Darnold to still be what he is over the next few years, and you could win big? That's what has to match up, and I'm not sure whether it does or not.
615-737-1025. We will take your reaction. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, the Busy Bee Plumbing Heating. I mean, they could be eating. And Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home with a $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025. The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Talking the Sam Darnold butterfly effect, because now that Sam Darnold has completed his redemption arc and has won the Super Bowl, we're wondering what would have happened had the Tennessee Titans landed Sam Darnold in free agency last season. And I also do want to make one thing clear. We had one texter, I believe it was. Let me find it here. JD said Sam Darnold would have also wanted to come. He would have also had to want to come to Tennessee.
That's
Yeah.
a whole nother thing too. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes. And y'all can tell me if I'm missing something. 615-737-1025. I don't recall a credible, and I emphasize that word, credible report that Darnold was interested in joining the Titans in free agency. The closest thing I could find was this story from the Tennesseans' Nick Suss in November before the Titans played the Seahawks at Nissan Stadium. Nick Suss wrote, quote, as sources told the Tennessean, Titans coaches were interested in evaluating the veteran quarterbacks who could come available. Not just Darnold, who could have returned to Minnesota via franchise tag or contract extension, but also former New Orleans and Oakland quarterback Derek Carr, who retired rather than facing the market. The front office never loved the idea. Even if signing Darnold meant trading the number 1 pick in exchange for a massive haul of draft picks, there wasn't belief the roster would be strong enough to seriously contend within the first 2 cheaper years of Darnold's contract. The strategy of signing a win-now quarterback to a roster that wouldn't be ready to compete felt tantamount to signing up for roughly 7 wins a year and wading back into the quarterback market in 2 or 3 years.
That pretty much sums it up. Not Cincinnati, Seattle, they have a team built and ready, a team that had 10 wins the prior year. So they were ready to take that next step. The Titans were picking first in the NFL draft, first overall in the NFL draft. This roster was not in a position to sustain, his first couple of years. It would have been mediocre. And then maybe when they got to that 3rd year, now his contract kicks in, and now you got to deal with his contract and the rookie contracts that are now up, that would be up right along with his. So listen, to me, that sort of is the counter to what other people are saying. Like, you should have brought him in and we would have better team. Well, the counter to that is what Nick Suss wrote. And not to say it would have been right, but that's like the counter to it. Okay, if we would have done this, look at what would have potentially happened.
Hair Metal Henry says, yeah, but Sam Darnold would still be under Brian Callahan. I put my money on an anvil floating for 10 minutes over them winning more games.
That's another fair question is, would Darnold have played even as – we can't assume he would have played as well with the Titans as he did with the Seahawks. We've already pointed out that the personnel around him was way better for the Seahawks. But just with the Callahan factor, all of the issues that Callahan ended up having, how would that have affected Darnold? And then having that high price tag next to your name, if he were struggling, how would he have handled that? These are all fair questions. I think you would have had to have gone in knowing what Nick Suss wrote, and we just pointed that out in the last segment, that it wouldn't have been a win now kind of idea. It would have been, let's ride Darnold for 3, 4, 5 seasons and hope that he's still playing good football at age 30, 31, which I think it's fairly reasonable that a guy that age should still be able to maintain that. But you would have had to take some lumps with an expensive quarterback before your roster was ready to win.
One texter says, wouldn't Darnold have been brought in as a bridge quarterback like Alex Smith was for the Chiefs?
I don't think that's the idea. That wasn't that's not what the Seahawks.
No, even though they signed him to a 3-year deal, I think that 3-year deal was just in case it doesn't work out. But, I wouldn't be surprised if they redid his deal this offseason to keep him there even longer, because that's one less piece that they have to worry about. And Sam Darnold's what, 31, 32?
He's only
29.
29.
Yeah. So I think Seattle's going to redo his deal, restructure the deal, give him more money, and make him amongst some of the top paid quarterbacks out there. But now they've seen he can do it. And now they can add the money on down the line.
And remember, he had already proven he could do it with the Vikings, right? So that he was no longer the reclamation project. He was going to be in a different category, an expensive investment coming off of a career year where you still had to ask yourself, was that a career year? Is this who he is? Or could he regress after the one really good year? Like the Vikings certainly didn't think that they would skip a beat, knowing what they knew, and they had him the whole year. So the fact that they let him go now doesn't look good. But at the same time, you were going to have to invest pretty heavily in Darnold. So he was no longer a reclamation project last summer.
Keegan says, y'all might get to this point, but we have Darnold, do a little better. We end the season with the young core plus Darnold in the 9th pick. Do we like this situation more or the current situation we have now? I would take the one we have now on the uptick with a younger quarterback versus middling with an older quarterback.
Well, if Cam Ward continues to develop like he did the second half of the season, then I'm with the texter. I would rather, have a young quarterback still developing, looks good. You can add pieces around there. Everybody's young. You bring in some veteran guys, and then they can hopefully help you continue to win while those younger guys are developing. And then you hope by that second or third year, well, really by that third year, now you're a playoff team. So, I mean, they could have did that, and they still can do it with Cam Ward. So trying to do it the other way, you probably still would have gotten to the same point. It may have taken you a little bit longer, but you would have got there. But then I think the roster, you would have had to make some hard decisions come year 3 of his contract, or if you would have signed him to a 4-year deal.
You would have to hope that he could maintain what he's been doing the last couple of years, which is very good play, does turn it over a lot. He's not perfect, but let's just put him in a category of very good. The key would be, what could you do with those extra picks that you would have wielded for the first pick? Those extra 3, 4, maybe 5, who knows, players that you'd get in last year's draft, in this year's draft. That's the unknown. Is you could have filled 2 or 3 other big holes and say, well, we're set there now. We've got so-and-so playing defensive back or as the edge rusher or these things that they don't have right now.
John from Murfreesboro says, there would be little change as far as wins. As Willie said, Darnold by himself is not a game changer. In Minnesota, he had a top 5 receiver in Justin Jefferson and a very good one in Jordan Addison. Then he has Jackson Smith and Jigba in Seattle, yet another top 5 wide receiver. I can name 20 receivers better than Calvin Ridley. If Darnold is on the Titans, who would he be throwing to?
Calvin Ridley, and maybe they would have gotten a receiver had they, made the deal and got some picks. Maybe they would have chosen to pick a receiver higher in the draft, knowing that they had that extra pick. But maybe not. But they're right. You go from, Jefferson, Addison, Hockenson, to an offensive coordinator that knows how to call plays, and that offense is going at a clip that many were not going last year, to another team in Seattle that has a top 3 wide receiver, a really good second guy in Cooper Kupp and some other guys, a really good running back, a defense, offensive line's really good. So you look at those 2 situations and then you point them here toward the Tennessee Titans. He wouldn't have got any of that. It would have been a roster that is being built. Maybe they would have drafted an extra offensive lineman with the extra picks. I don't know. But the way that roster stood last year, right before the draft, everybody knew, like, this is, especially if those those starters get hurt, the talent drops off because there's no experience. And what happened? Those top flight guys, those A1 guys, meaning starters, they got hurt. And then they went to the second group and they got hurt. Then it was a free fall after that. So I'm not sure if he would have been able to operate the way he maybe under this, he probably wouldn't have won 5 games. Considering what was going on with this team, injury-wise, trading guys away and everything else.
One texter says, the costs outweigh the benefits of signing Darnold. Okay, instead of being a dumpster fire, we would have just been a dumpster. We have so many missing pieces to the puzzle. With or without Darnold, we'd be better, but not Super Bowl contender better. But to the other texter's question about who's he throwing the ball to, I mentioned this before. Jackson Smith-Njigba was outstanding this season. He leveled up because of Sam Darnold. He was the offensive player of the year. But last season with Geno Smith, that's his quarterback, he was still an 1,100-yard receiver. He had 100 receptions for 1,130 yards and 6 touchdowns. He was a Pro Bowler in his second season. There are no young receivers on the Titans who compare to Jackson Smith-Njigba. What would Shim Dike's season, what would Alec Iamaner's season, assuming they're on the team in this butterfly effect scenario, what would their seasons would have looked like with Sam Darnold as their quarterback?
I think we could say on a baseline, let's just say that a veteran quarterback might have added some numbers to those guys, but I still think it would have been underwhelming. I think there would have been a lot of, hey, we've paid X amount of $1 million for this quarterback. Why aren't we winning? Like, I think that never fails, even if we went into it saying, hey, this is a long-term thing. We're not signing Sam Darnold to win right now. We're signing Sam Darnold because we feel like we want to put this in place. We're going to pay him, but we feel like the roster will come around. We're going to trade the first pick, and we're going to build the roster to where the roster is going to be really strong and we'll have a really good quarterback. I don't know if that would have flown because Darnold would have been the highest paid free agent signing. He would have been coming to a losing team. If he struggled, there would have been a ton of criticism about Darnold, right?
And he was more likely to struggle in this situation
big time
than he ever, would have struggled going to Seattle. And he didn't struggle if any. So when you bring him here,
he did lead the NFL in turnovers.
Yeah, he did lead. But when you got the best
in the regular
game,
season, he was outstanding to 0 turnovers in the playoffs.
And that's what people don't understand. Like when you pair a quarterback up with a receiver that has already shown the ability to play this game at a high level, it's not the quarterback that's leveling him up. It's just him having another year and him ultimately leveling you up, because a damn good receiver gives the quarterback a bigger margin of error. Listen to me again. A really good receiver gives a quarterback a bigger margin of error. That's why a lot of times they're looking for the 6'3", 6'4" guys. Because if you don't have an accurate quarterback like Breeze, Brady, Peyton, even Purdy's accurate, then that margin of error has to be a little bit greater. Like, I have to give me a guy with a wingspan that can cover where I'm going to be off at. So I go get it. Why do you think, and I know we got to go quick, why do you think that the Carolina Panthers went and got Ted McMillan? Because their quarterback's 5'11", and their receiver is 6'4", and his range, his radius is much bigger. So you can be off a little bit, but that guy is still going to get the ball.
So in your mind, Jackson Smith-Njigba should be getting more credit for what he did for Sam Darnold than vice versa, which is what I think Sam did general consensus.
Exactly. But I'm not taking anything away from Sam Darnold, but I think people automatically go, oh, it was the quarterback that leveled him. No, but he's been able to go from one number one in the NFL to another number one in the NFL. If you can't put up the numbers with two really good offensive coordinators, then you shouldn't be in this league. But Sam Darnold was able to take advantage of it, and they allowed him to level up.
I still will conclude my argument with how I felt the day after the draft last year.
They should have taken the picks.
I think they should have taken the picks and not signed Darnold, and then just had a placeholder, maybe an upgrade from Brandon Allen, somebody like that. Somebody that could have just gotten them by. A true reclamation project. Maybe it was Mac Jones or somebody like that. I would have gone that route and bit the bullet for a year and come back with all these picks this year. I still stand by what I said. I still hope that Cam Ward will be an excellent quarterback someday. But after watching him for a year, I still feel the same way I did last year.
615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Coming up next, we had our friend Teron Davenport on the show yesterday, and he said something really interesting about the Titans at number 4. We will discuss that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
Hey, this is Derek Mason, and you heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a resolution or some type of goal to shed some extra pounds, only to face disappointment. But I got some good news, because at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. Trevor Maddich, ESPN football analyst, will join us in roughly 15, 20 minutes. Now, normally on Tuesdays, we are joined by Predators GM Barry Trotz, but the NHL is on break for the Olympics, so Barry Trotz is on break from our program. So we will catch up with Barry Trotz later this month. And when we do, he will be presented by Green Ventures Landscaping, which designs and builds outdoor spaces that actually get used. Patios, hardscapes, the whole deal. Homes and businesses that want to stand out, not blend in. For more information, visit greenventurelandscaping.com. So yesterday,
Hey, one quick, while we're on the hockey,
of course,
vibe,
how could I forget?
let's give the shout out to Team USA.
The women shutting out Canada 5-0. That is
Stunning.
the first time the Canadian women's hockey team has been shut out in the Olympics ever. So congratulations to the U.S. women. Hopefully the U.S. men can do the same thing when they hopefully take on Canada sometime during the Olympics.
I don't know if I haven't seen what the draw is. I know that
They are not in the same group.
right. And so the U.S. and Canada here, this gives the USA the leg up on the first. They'll be the number one seed.
They are the top seed in the knockout stage.
So what I couldn't decipher, I was listening to Kenny Albert, AJ Malesko, Catherine Tappan. They were doing the game. When will they play Canada again? In the final, or would they meet before the final?
Yeah, I don't know the
I don't know.
answer to that
I'm not
off
sure.
the top of my head.
Yeah.
And I believe the men,
They'll theoretically have to beat them again. They're clearly the two best teams
Yes.
again. They always are.
the Olympic men's tournament kicks off tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. The U.S. men don't play until Thursday afternoon, but we will get into the Olympic men's hockey tournament this week. Really looking forward to it. The NFL draft is, God, I don't know, 2.5 months away? Dear God. The NFL
Let's
draft.
pace ourselves.
Yes.
Let's start slow.
Yes, we will start slowly. So yesterday we had our friend Teron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, on the program. And Willie, you asked Teron what he's hearing about the number 4 pick. Which
Yeah.
prospects?
And how ironic is it that's me that's asking the draft question? Because I'm usually the guy, please, let's not talk about the draft. Let's not do it.
But I'm glad you did, because Teron told us 4 players who the Titans are seriously considering with the number 4 overall pick as of now. Again, these things are subject to change. Those 4 players are Ohio State linebacker Arvell Reese, Texas Tech defensive end David Bailey, Miami defensive end Reuben Bain, and Ohio State wide receiver Carnell Tate. So I don't pretend to know a lot about all of these players, but I am curious.
You're going to know everything about him by the time April rolls around.
That is true. I do know that Reuben Bain has small arms. I've heard that like 15 times, and I'll continue to hear that for the next 2.5 months. So if you didn't know that, Reuben Bain, he's got small arms.
Hey, everybody.
And that may impact his draft stock. Who the hell knows? I think it's weird that we measure dudes' arms. But anyway, which of those players, based on what you know about them, Derek Mason, which of those players who could potentially be available at number 4 intrigues you the most based on the Titans' needs? And there are a lot of them.
So we're talking Carnell Tate.
Carnell Tate, Arvell
Arvell
Reese,
Reese.
David Bailey, and Reuben Bain. Here's something interesting. Dane Brugler, the Athletics' chief NFL draft analyst, released his latest 2026 NFL draft rankings today. And he had Arvell Reese, the linebacker out of Ohio State, as his number 1 prospect. He writes, quote, an impressive height, weight, speed athlete. Reese, one of the youngest prospects in the draft class, he's only 20 years old, I want to say, was asked by Ohio State to play a blend of multiple positions, which showcased his vast tools for NFL scouts. He is explosive from his spot with exceptional closing burst to cover ground in a blink. He falls somewhere between Micah Parsons and Jalen Walker in terms of his pro projection.
Listen, that defense was really good last year, and they have first rounders littered across, the future first rounders littered across that defense, and Arvell Reese led that unit. Listen, there's with either him or Ruben Bain, and I know that well, Ruben Bain has short arms, this and that, but if you watch these guys play, man, they are just havoc. They wreak havoc. They are extremely difficult to block. Now, I haven't seen much of the kid from Texas Tech because I hadn't, spent time and watched Texas Tech much. Y'all know how I feel about Cornell Tate. I've said this before. I think he's a instant spark plug guy. I think Ruben Bain is a spark plug guy. I think Arvell Reese is a spark plug guy. But I've also said that drafting Jeremiah Love, I think, will jumpstart your offense immediately because of his versatility and some of the things he can do and how he becomes a matchup problem offensively. Again, we're going to talk about the defense because this year's team that won the championship, their defense dominated. And I mean dominated their opponent. Last year's defense dominated their opponent. So we all are sort of creatures of habit. What have you done for me now? So we want to gear toward the defense. And there's nothing wrong with that because I think these guys defensively will be spark plug guys. They can get in automatically. You see production, your team gets better. But I do look at somebody like Jeremiah Love, and think that how dynamic this offense could be with him behind Cam Ward. That's just my deal. But those other guys, I mean, I think they would be guys that come in and will change. You immediately, or you will see production immediately from these guys.
I am curious. Number one, would Reese still be on the board under any circumstances at 4?
Yeah.
I think that might be a stretch, right? You would need maybe another team or two to jump up for a quarterback. Is that fair to say?
But yeah,
but the thing that's unique about Reese, from what I'm reading, and I watched some Ohio State games, and I always, when you watch them, that there are great players surrounded by other great players. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to know who's the guy that's carrying it. But what could you do with a guy like Reese? Because it's unusual for a guy being picked that high who's he lines up at middle linebacker sometimes.
He can play across the board, though.
That's the thing. Mm-hmm. So I want to know, what is the vision? What would a pro scout, what would Robert Saleh envision the role of Reese? Is he a guy that you would use to be an edge rusher? Is he a guy that you move all over the place and just create matchup stuff? It's enticing for a guy like that, but it's got to fit for what they're doing scheme wise.
Here's a name, and I think Arvell Reese prospect wise is much better than this guy because this guy didn't start coming on until he started to develop in the NFL. Adalius Thomas. He was on that Baltimore Ravens championship team. I played with them for 2 years when I first got there. He ended up going to New England. New England signed him as a big free agent. Now, it didn't quite work out with New England, but to me, that is who Arvell Reese is, and even better, because with Adalius, you can land him up at defensive end. He was about 6'3", he was about 6'4", but this guy ran like a 4'3", 4'4" guy. He had about 250, 260. But you can play him at end. You can play him at outside backer. You can buzz him at safety because he had range. Those are the guys that you're looking for. Now, Adalius, he didn't start coming on until he got into the NFL and he developed into the player he was. But this is who sort of Arvell Reese is. Go back and watch Adalius. And there are probably other guys that sort of fit his mold, but I'm thinking of guys that I played with. And Keith was sort of that way. Keith Bullock, where you could put him at it, you could put him on the outside to rush. He was a backer. He could play safety. He can cover. So guys like Arvell Reese, they are sort of jump starters. They are spark plug guys. They are guys that you immediately put them in your defense, and your defense is going to get better because they're multiple across the board.
But you got to know what you want to do because he's not a straight up. It's like you put him over here. He's the edge guy. He goes and gets the quarterback. Your problems are solved. Or he's your left tackle, or he's your quarterback. Like I want to know, how would you use a talent like that?
It's a good question when we have Trevor Matich here in just a few minutes.
And also, we have, if we don't figure it out today, we got 2.5 months or however long it takes. We'll figure it out.
Jamie from Paris, Tennessee, says the Titans do not need Reese. We already have a project with Femi Oladejo, who, like Reese, has changed from inside linebacker to edge. Bailey is far and away the best edge in the draft. That's David Bailey out of Texas Tech. He's a big boy, 6'3", 250 pounds. As explained by The Ringer, he emerged as one of the most productive edge players in the country last year, tying for an FCS best 14.5 sacks while adding 19.5 tackles for loss and 81 pressures. He's a quick-footed rusher with an explosive first step and a variety of moves at his disposal.
I mean, listen, again, I'm not going to pretend that I know a lot about the kid out of Texas Tech, David Bailey. Obviously they believe he's a high impact player. I need to go back and watch him at least 3 or 4 games, watch him this past season, maybe a game or 2 of last year. So the caller maybe, or the texter may be right that David Bailey is the guy that they ultimately draft. But I think, Arvell Reese, people don't have you number 1 overall prospect just because
he's not a project. If you're going to draft somebody
exactly.
number 1, that's not a project.
He's not a project. He's a guy you feel is going to step in right now and give you some production and only get better after that. So, but again, you can't go wrong with any of these guys. It was interesting they brought up Femi because he sort of fits the mold of David Bailey, Arvell Reese, and sort of not so much as a Bain, but those other 2 guys, he sort of fit in their mold. So maybe they pass on guys like this and lean on really developing Femi, as an outside rusher.
One texter says, what do you think about the idea of the Titans going running back with number 4 overall? If you just heard Derek Mason, he
is open to it.
Hey,
Valentine's Day isn't until this weekend, but Derek Mason loves love.
Exactly.
As you know, because of all of the Hallmark movies he watches during the holiday season. Derek Mason.
Oh, it's got to be a big weekend on that channel.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Oh,
I will be watching this weekend.
Derek Mason.
I might need to just jump over and watch that. Just so we can have a conversation.
Yeah, just settle in on one,
I do want
to.
Yes. I also love love.
There you go.
I do want to ask you about a receiver. It's not Cardinal Tate, but if you listen to Robbie and Rex Road, Rex Road's man crush on this player is getting a little uncomfortable, and that's Mekhi Lemon, the wide receiver from USC. What do you think of his pro prospects? Not at number 4 overall, but just in general, because Rex Road loves him some Mekhi Lemon.
TD brought Mekhi up to me, I believe, a while ago, and he gave me a list of receivers. I just hadn't been able to look at all of them. I can't give an assessment on, the receiver at this point. But what I do know is that university produces some damn good receivers. So there's sort of this lineage that they have at the university with wide receivers. So, but at right now, I can't, comment too much on Mekhi Lemon and what, he's able to do. He's a slot guy, right? I think he may be an inside guy or an inside guy. But I've been concentrated on Cornell Tate because to me, I think he is the top prospect when it comes to wide receivers. I think he is the top prospect. Now is the guy below him. Do I think it's just head and shoulders above? No, but I do believe he gives you what the NFL covets, and he gives it to you at an elite level. The ability, to stretch the field, play outside, and make those combat catches. He did an excellent job at that at Ohio State.
615-737-1025. Trevor Maddich will know the answers to these questions, so we will talk to Trevor Maddich coming up next. 615-737-1025. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service.
All right, let's tell you about Loan Pronto. Fixed rate mortgages with APRs as low as 4.89%. Low mortgage rates are back, and Loan Pronto wants you to know about that and take advantage of that. So if you're stuck in a higher interest loan, 6%, something higher, you could drop your payment big time. So don't wait any longer. You hear me talking about this every day. So call Loan Pronto and see how much money you can save. You can close in as little as 2 weeks. It's a much easier process than it used to be. Very streamlined, thanks to Loan Pronto's customer service. 615-499-5780 or visit loanpronto.com and get the instant home appraisal. It's free, no hard credit pull, and let them take a look at your situation. But whatever you do, don't miss the rate drop of 2026. Take advantage and ask about new home loans, VA loans, full cash out refis, or the rapid equity loan I tell you all about, where you can take money from your home's equity. So 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, APR for well-qualified buyers, NMLS consumeraccess.org.
D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick 1025. The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Let's go to our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Trevor Maddich, who is brought to you by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Trevor, we were just talking about the NFL draft. We are getting started early around here, and we were talking about a conversation we were having yesterday with Teron Davenport. We asked him which players is he hearing are in the, in the Titans' sights, so to speak, at number 4. He mentioned 3 defensive prospects. He also mentioned Carnell Tate, but let's focus on the 3 defensive prospects: Arvell Reese, David Bailey, and Ruben Bain. Based on what you know of those players, you know a hell of a lot more than we do, and based on the defense that Robert Saleh prefers to run, which of those 3 players do you think is the best fit for the Titans if they were to choose from that group?
If I were to put them in order, Adam, I would say number 1, Arvell Reese, linebacker, Ohio State. Number 2, Ruben Bain, Miami edge rusher and defensive lineman, and those 2 would be very close to me. And number 3, I would put David Bailey, the edge rusher out of Texas Tech. The reason I love Arvell Reese is that he can run sideline to sideline and clean up everything that the defensive line spills to him. One of the things that Robert Saleh's defenses like to do is play one gap with the defensive line, eat up offensive linemen as they're trying to stop that penetration, and then let the linebackers flow to run and hit and make plays. And Reese is a guy that can go sideline to sideline doing that. But you can also line him up in different places. I mean, you can put him on the edge as an edge rusher if you want, but you can also use him like Micah Parsons has been used, which is to say, identify the weakest pass blocker, whether he's a guard or a center or a tackle, and then passing down, put Reese in there. You know, it hurt my heart for the offensive lineman. Like, you'll take Parsons and put him in over, say, the right guard in a passing down. You know he was going to rush over that guard. You knew that guard is not an athletic guy. That's why he's in there at guard instead of at a tackle. And you would see Reese burst to one side of the guard. The guard would do his maximum best to try to get out there in front of him. And then Parson would burst inside to the other gap, and the guard wasn't athletic enough to get inside to stop that counter move. And Arvell Reese is a guy that can do that at any position on the offensive line that they think is the weakest in terms of protection. So there's so much versatility that he has in terms of being a disruptive playmaker, and I just love what he can do. But the reason I like Ruben Bain as second to that is because Bain is an every down defensive end who is an elite pass rusher and also an outstanding run stuffer. So he's a guy that'll be going after the quarterback every single time that it's a pass because he's got his hand in the dirt down there, whereas Reese might be dropping into coverage a lot in addition to rushing. And so I think Bain is one of the best pure pass rushers because he's got a great first step. He's got heavy hands, meaning that when the offensive tackle goes to punch him, Bain is able to just dominate those arms and hands of the tackle as they come out to try to punch. And he's got every move imaginable that a college pass rusher can be expected to have. And so he's not just a one-trick pony. Then he's got just a fantastic motor. So those 2 guys would be the first 2 that I would take. If you flip them and you happen to like Bain better than Reese, it wouldn't bother me. I think Reese is a less dangerous pick that high because the one thing that people say about Bain is that he's got short arms. I don't see any limitation of that in his play at the college level. I don't think there'd be limitations at the pro level either. But at least when you talk about the real reason that general managers draft who they draft, it's not to improve the team. It's not to win the Super Bowl. It's so they don't get fired. And the safer pick between Bain and Reese is Reese because of that.
So why wouldn't David Bailey, in your mind, be a scheme fit for Robert Saleh?
David Bailey, I think, is I don't want to say a one-trick guy. He's very much a specialist. He is an outstanding elite edge rusher. I mean, he's got an explosive burst off the line that breaks down an offensive tackle's pass block set before he even has a chance to get his hands on Bailey. He's just so quick with that first step. And then he also has, like Bain, a tremendous repertoire of moves and counter moves and counters off of the counters. He's just a joy to watch. And that's good. But the thing is, whereas Bain's at 6'3", I think about 285, Bailey's 6'3", about 250. And Bain is an outstanding run defender. Bailey he's not a liability as a run defender, but you worry about him. And if you're on offense, you're running right at him as often as you can and making him defend the run just to beat his body down so that as the game wears on, he's kind of a little worn out when he goes to try to rush the passer. Bain doesn't have that problem. When it comes to just being a linebacker, if you use him as a linebacker, he's not great. He's great as an elite pass rusher. But so is Bain. So is Reese. But those two guys can also be three-down guys that can take on anything the offense wants to throw at them.
Now, with that being said, Trevor, we're talking with Trevor Maddich, NFL and college analyst for ESPN. Now, when you say that, do you think that those two guys will be gone before the Titans pick fourth? Now, we assume that, the Vegas Raiders will draft Mendoza, but then you got two spots before that, before the Titans draft. So do you think, Arvell Reese and Bain will be gone? And if so, do you think the Titans do, take somebody like David Bailey, knowing that he's a hell of an outside rusher, but that's what his specialty is?
Yeah, I think, Derek, that there's a good chance Reese won't be there. I mean, you look at Mel Kiper's latest mock draft, he's got Reese going to the Jets at number 2. The Jets have an awful lot of needs, and it's kind of unfortunate that Dante Moore, the quarterback for Oregon, decided to return to college because the Jets may have taken him at number 2, which would have bounced Reese down another spot. The Cardinals, Mel has him taking Francis Maui-Noa, who's the offensive tackle of Miami, and that would be great for the Titans if they did, because even if Arvell Reese is gone by the time the Titans pick at 4, that leaves Bailey and Bain available at number 4. And I kind of think that both of them will be available. If they do take Bailey, I'm not saying it's bad. What I'm saying is that they've got to maximize what he does best and not put him out in a position to where offenses can dictate that he has to play in the style that he doesn't do best. But at number 4, I'd be surprised if Bain's not there, because I think enough people will be afraid of his arm length that they'll forget to watch the film.
Now, did the Super Bowl, we're going to switch over to the NFL now. Did the game go the way you expected, or were some things that happened within the game, made you wonder, well, had they done this, then maybe this would have happened, or if they had not done that, either team?
It started out the way I expected. I thought it would be a defensive battle, and certainly it was. It was 9-0 in the first half, and then the Seahawks added a field goal in the third quarter, and then things kind of broke loose later in the game. What was different was that I expected Patriots quarterback Drake May to play better than he did. I mean, Drake May completely melted down. He was awful. Now, I get it. In the first half, both sides were playing to not make that big mistake. And then we got into, the third quarter, and time is running out. Seattle is ahead. They were up 12-0 at the end of 3. And now Drake May is having to press because now the clock's running out. Even though the Patriots defense had kept Seattle out of the end zone up until that point, they were still down 12-0 entering the fourth quarter. And then 3 Drake May turnovers led to 2 touchdowns and a field goal for Seattle. One of those was that it's either an interception, pick 6, or it's a fumble, scoop and score, depending on how they scored it. I still don't know how they scored it, but that was May trying to do too much. It was the fourth quarter. He was trailing. He's watching that clock tick down. He dropped back to pass, pressure coming from the right. He backed up towards the left, and as he was hit by the pressure, he still tried to heave the ball deep down the field to a covered receiver on the right sideline. It was just I don't even know what it was, but that was the one that the ball popped up in the air, and Seattle grabbed it and ran for a touchdown. So I didn't expect May to make so many dumb decisions in the second half, even though he was trying to come back. And I didn't expect him to miss as many open receivers as he did, because there were opportunities, especially in that third quarter, where he had open guys and he did have time, and he just flat missed them. He threw it towards them, but he just flat missed them. There weren't that many opportunities because of the Seahawks pass rush, but when May had the opportunities, he didn't take advantage of them. When Darnold had the opportunities, he did.
Trevor Maddox is with us from ESPN. Trevor, we were doing a discussion yesterday on what can you learn from how the Seahawks built their team, because it's kind of unique in that they don't have a quarterback who was drafted with a first-round pick that they built around in sort of the traditional way. They were a bit unorthodox, some bold trades, trading a couple of quarterbacks to get assets. What, if anything, could you think of that comes to mind that the Titans could learn from how the Seahawks built themselves?
Willie, I think that you make a great point about the quarterback. I mean, they didn't draft Sam Darnold high in the first round, trading up to get him, did they? The Jets are the ones that drafted him high in the first round. And he fell to the Seahawks. And while all that was going on, the Seahawks had, they had let go of Russell Wilson. They brought in Geno Smith. He was pretty good, but they figured he had too low of a ceiling. And so they waited for the right quarterback, and they figured that might be Darnold. In the meantime, Seattle was building that team from the inside out. They assembled a defensive line that could get pressure on the quarterback and stop the run without bringing safeties out of the backfield. That allowed them to play 2 and 3 deep safeties a lot, sometimes even 4 in various different kinds of coverages. That made it almost impossible for teams to hit big plays on them, right? And then that defensive front would go get the quarterback. And so they built that. They built a good offensive line. They invested draft capital in Jackson Smith and Jigba, who in his third year, I think it was the offensive player of the year. So they got an elite playmaker that forced defenses to game plan for him, which opened things up for the tight end and for other receivers. Cooper Kupp, they were able to take advantage of defenses focusing on Smith and Jigba, and they still couldn't stop Jackson Smith and Jigba. And so then when the quarterback came in, the rest of the team around Seattle was ready to go. And that's huge. Now, for the Titans, well, they used the first pick in the draft on the quarterback. Okay. But I think I think Drake May's experience in the Super Bowl is something that can inform the Titans going forward into free agency and the draft, because the Patriots defense held Seattle out of the end zone until the fourth quarter. That meant that Drake May did not have to press, and he didn't make the big mistake. Even though they didn't move the ball down there and score it all, they still didn't make the big mistake until in the fourth quarter, Drake May had to open it up and take more chances, and that's when Seattle blew the game open. So what does that mean for the Titans? It means that you can help Cam Ward by drafting a receiver up high. Now, I wouldn't mind that. But if you draft the right defender up high, you can do what basically Seattle did for Darnold and what the Patriots defense did for May in the first 3 quarters, which is to say, hold the score down so your quarterback doesn't have to press and he doesn't have to put himself and the ball at risk. And to me, that's the biggest lesson about how they built their team that the Titans can learn from, because, not investing a high draft pick in the quarterback, that horse is out of the barn.
Right.
They already did that with Cam Ward. But from a standpoint now of how do you help Cam Ward? Well, if the defense means that is so good that he doesn't have to press, then he doesn't put himself in the position to make as many mistakes. A lot of good things happen from a confidence standpoint, from winning game standpoint, et cetera. And so I think that's the lesson that the Titans should take from the Super Bowl. Build that defense to help your quarterback.
This is an observation that Adam had yesterday. I wasn't aware of until he said it, but Mike Macdonald is the first actual play calling defensive coach, who's the head coach, to win the Super Bowl. There's been some other defensive-minded head coaches like Bill Belichick, but if you take Belichick out, there's only a handful of others. There's way more offensive-minded coaches or even play callers that have won Super Bowls than defense. But, of course, we're intrigued here because Robert Saleh is going to do exactly what Mike Macdonald is doing in Seattle. Are you surprised it's that imbalanced?
No, I'm not surprised, but it is a little bit of whiplash, I think, for people that, that watch football more casually. I know you guys watch football with great intensity and you keep up with everything, but I think most people look at the Super Bowl and they think, okay, the teams in the NFL that are successful in the playoffs and successful in the Super Bowl, yeah, their defenses can play, but it's the offenses. There's been so much emphasis on quarterbacks in the passing game, in part because of rule changes that favor the quarterbacks in the passing game. And that elite side of the ball with the little skill guys is where you win. Excuse me. And this Super Bowl, I think, and this playoff run, because so many of the top 10 defenses were in the playoffs this year. I think 8 of the top 10 were in the playoffs. This showed everybody that defense is back, if it ever left. And so this emphasis on taking advantage of rule changes with quarterbacks and great receivers, et cetera, that's all interesting, but it's still the defense that's going to win. And in the case of the Seahawks, defense and the running game. The MVP was their running back, Kenneth Walker. And so the Seattle Seahawks partied like it's 1979 to win the 2026 Super Bowl.
Trevor Maddich has been our guest on D-Mace, Ving, and Adonik. He joins us every Tuesday and is brought to you by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Trevor, as always, appreciate your insight. We'll catch up next week.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks, guys.
615-737-1025. Coming up next, there was a headline today that when I saw it, I had to take off my glasses, wipe them off, put them back on, and make sure I was actually reading what I was reading. It happened at the Olympics. We'll tell you about it next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
If you've injured yourself in a motorcycle accident, go to lawtigers.com for your free case evaluation. Even if your accident was months ago, you have nothing to lose by calling Law Tigers. Insurance companies want to pay out as little as possible, or frankly, nothing at all. But Law Tigers fights to get you the compensation you deserve, and they don't get paid until your case has been settled. Look, they understand how much your bike gear is worth to you and how much it means to you. So they will help you get all repaired or better yet replaced. So call 1-800-LAW-TIGERS or visit lawtigers.com. Law Tigers is powered by Freeman and Fuson, and you can find them in Nashville, located at 2126 21st South, 21st Ave South. And don't forget, go to predatorsbike.com to enter to win a custom Nashville Predator Indian motorcycle signed by the entire team, courtesy of Law Tigers in Music City, Indian. That's Law Tigers, Tennessee's motorcycle lawyers.
D Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025. The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. We will take you up to Vanderbilt pregame. The men's basketball team, that is, taking on Auburn at 6 p.m. Pregame starts at 5:30 right here on 1025 The Game. And many of you, like me, like Willie and Derek, are probably enjoying the Winter Games. I love the Olympics. Winter, summer, it doesn't matter. And there has already been a viral moment in these Winter Games. I went on ESPN.com, as is my wont, this morning. Maybe it was around lunchtime. And I saw a headline that I could not believe was real. This was the headline, quote, Biathlon medalist admits to cheating on girlfriend in interview. From the Associated Press, a post-race interview with the bronze medal winner in the men's Olympic biathlon competition on Tuesday took an unexpected turn when he revealed in a live broadcast that he had been unfaithful to his girlfriend. Now, I am not going to attempt to pronounce this Norwegian biathlete's name, but he is one of Norway's top biathletes. He finished third in the 20-kilometer individual race, but was full of remorse when he spoke to a Norwegian broadcaster.
His
Quote,
first name is Sturla.
Sturla.
Yeah.
Sturla.
Oh, Sturla.
Not Starla. Not Stella.
Sturla.
At least it's spelled Sturla.
Sturla. Quote, 6 months ago, I met the love of my life, the world's most beautiful, sweetest person. And 3 months ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life and cheated on her. He said he told his partner a week ago about what happened. Quote, I'm sure many people now see me in a different light, but I only have eyes for her. I'm not quite sure what I'm trying to say by saying this now, but sport has taken a backseat in recent days. I wish I could share this with her. He later said about why he decided to divulge this information on a national broadcast. He said, quote, it was the choice I made. We make different choices during our life, and that's how we make life. So today I made a choice to tell the world what I did. So maybe there is a chance she will see what she really means to me. Maybe not.
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
Probably not.
Probably not.
We'll see.
Only reason I'm laughing here, I mean, is for this reason.
Because he cheated on her 3 months into the relationship?
They were together 3 months.
This was the love of his life.
Love of his life.
And
They're
after
together
3
for
months, cheating?
But then not even that. And maybe it's just a generational thing. Whether it be infidelity or whatever, people feel they need to run to the masses to tell them what they did to somehow lessen the blow with a partner or a friend or whatnot, instead of just going to that friend or that partner, and he did it, and saying, this is what I did. And then y'all discuss it, and if you want to go get treatment, therapy, then go to therapy. But if she wanted you to tell the whole world, well, she probably didn't, but if she wanted you to tell the whole world about the infidelity, I'm not sure what individual wants the whole world to know. Well, I guess there are a lot now, about what's going on in their relationship. And what if she doesn't take him back?
I mean, he must think this is the best way to get her back.
Instead of just going to therapy and working it out with her that way.
Is it going to work? Like these are something you would see out of it could be a Hallmark movie.
Could be a movie. No, because Hallmark movies they wouldn't do that. This would be in a regular love movie.
This is the equivalent of John Cusack with the boombox over his head and Say Anything.
Yeah.
He's hoping by broadcasting to the world, I made a mistake. I love you.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite movies, but my man Lloyd Dobler, John Cusack in the movie, he didn't do anything wrong. He got broken up with. He was trying to get her back. Nobody cheated on anybody there. The love of my life that he met 6 months ago, that's suspect to start with. But after 3 months, you've already made the decision. It's the love of your life, but you stepped out.
And listen, it can happen.
After 3 months?
Well, yeah,
they weren't serious?
Can you be serious? I guess you can be after 3 months.
Yeah.
Well, 3 months.
You can.
You can't.
When
That's
you
a bit-
know, you know.
That's
When
awfully
you know,
fast.
you
I guess
know.
you do. When you know, you. I guess.
And when
I'm
I-
not because I'm not gonna sit here and people texting me. Well, I met my wife and I knew she was okay. I get
Okay,
it.
okay.
I understand. I'm not
Love
gonna
at
go down
first
that
sight,
lane.
Derek
That's right.
Mason.
Yeah, you're right.
When
right.
I saw this story, I thought it was something that happened like the previous day, because there are plenty of stories about things that happen in the Olympic villages during
sure.
the Olympics.
Yes.
So I thought this Norwegian biathlete may have had a tryst.
A dalliance.
Yes. The night before and won bronze. It was like, man, I was not my
A
best self.
liaison?
Yes, a liaison. There we go.
You know what it was? I'm gonna tell you what it was. It was this. He knew that there was a likelihood of him being on the big stage.
Yeah.
And he knew that there was potential of that getting out. So he told his girlfriend before, then he won a medal. After that, it should have just been it. You told your girl, y'all talked about it. And obviously, she probably told you she needed some time. But then he was like, nope, I'm going to put down a gun. I'm telling the world so she will know that I love her. And she probably was looking at him like, I'm still not going to be with you.
Well, we'll have to figure out. Will there be like this great embrace and reunification by the end of the games?
I do hope it is.
I don't know, but it had to be weighing so much on his mind. He felt bad about it, guilty, but somewhere in his mind, he's like, "This is gonna get her back. I've got it. I'm gonna go public. I'm gonna win a medal, and I'm gonna tell the world."
I guess he ain't
that I want her back.
I guess he ain't, because typically, and then maybe this is not sort of the right people to console. He didn't console his boys like, hey, I'm doing it. What y'all
yeah, what do you think? What do you guys think?
What do y'all think?
Yeah.
Like,
Someone was like, dude, that'd be
Come
sick.
if I was his friend, I would advise him, listen, you've already told her. You shouldn't have done it. You've already told her. Y'all have talked about it. Don't you take your narrow tail on television and tell the world, because there are some people probably out there that are going to say, you know what? I don't want to do business with this guy. Just for something like that.
Would she have taken him back had he won silver instead of bronze?
If he won gold.
If he had won gold instead of bronze. Yeah, he cheated on me, but he did win gold.
I can't say she wouldn't have. And I can't
right now
say
it's like
she
bronze. I don't know, man.
Silver, maybe.
Yeah.
But gold, okay. We can sit and talk.
One texter says he is admitting his wrongs publicly. I respect that. Hopefully it helps him cope.
I listen, this is not about whether, I commend the young, I don't know if he's young or old, but I commend him for
we're an oversharing
like
generation.
Yeah. I commit for stepping out. But like my mama would tell me, everything ain't for everybody. And I don't know if parents are telling their kids that now. I know my mother told me that. Everything ain't for everybody. What we discuss in this house, what happens here, everything ain't for everybody. I guess his mom didn't raise him that way.
Okay, but do we think this is going to work? I want to know the end of the story, though.
Man.
Has there been a reaction from the girl?
Has there
been just silence? It's just like,
is there betting? Is there some way
I'm
you can bet on
sure
this?
you could probably find
get a prop
odds.
bet somewhere.
Get a prop bet somewhere.
Gino says he could have also done it as a preemptive info dump so the ex doesn't slam him in the media. She sees him win a medal and then spreads the dirt as payback. He could have just wanted to get out ahead of it.
That could be.
Now we're playing 4D chess, Gino.
But he wants to get her back. So he's not saying it to try to preempt it. It seemed like he's saying it to get her back.
Maybe he should take a page out of Lloyd Dobler's book and play some Peter Gabriel.
Yeah, there you go. Why he just didn't hold up a big boom box?
Well,
baby, I'm back. I don't know. I want you back or something.
What is that? Player? Baby come back?
Baby come back is
back.
player.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can blame it. Oh,
Yeah,
me.
that's
See, he
good
could have played
70s.
that. He
Yeah.
could have played that.
Good 70s tune right there.
Are you surprised that
That was pretty impressive.
do
I'm
that?
impressed. Yeah.
See?
Now this is from Say Anything.
Yes,
This
this is
80s.
Peter
Yeah,
Gabriel.
Peter Gabriel. Yeah.
Yes. Hold the bronze medal over your head and your iPod and your iPhone in the other.
But it
this
looks
is-
better
this
if it
is-
was gold.
Yes.
Right. But that's just a love song.
Yeah.
That's not a I messed up song. Like
Yes.
there's plenty of love songs you can go to, like I messed up, I want you back.
Meanwhile, she's playing Hit 'Em Up Style by Blue Cantrell, spending all of his money right now. 615-737-1025.
Is that what he's worried about?
We'll continue. Not this discussion, but we will continue the show. Coming up next, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Finken, 102.5 The Game. D. Mace, Vingen, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingen, and David Janes here with you. We hope you are having a wonderful, stress-free start to your commute home. Normally at this time, we are joined by Predators GM Barry Trotz, but the NHL is on break, so Barry Trotz is on break from our program as well. We will catch up with Barry Trotz closer to the restart of the Predators schedule in just a couple of weeks. The men's Olympic hockey tournament starts tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. Willie, does Finland play tomorrow?
I will look that up.
Finland indeed plays tomorrow against Slovakia. UC Saros will be starting in goal for the Finns tomorrow morning. That's a 9:30 a.m. Central start. Slovakia versus Finland. Eric Halla on that team as well. Sweden kicks off its Olympic tournament, Philip Forsberg, against Italy at 2 p.m. Central tomorrow. The U.S. starts on Thursday against Latvia. The Canadians start also on Thursday against Czechia. So we will talk about that tomorrow because I am interested to see if the smashing success of the Four Nations face-off carries over to the Olympic tournament. I would expect most people, most casual fans, the same fans who gravitated towards the Four Nations face-off, will probably wait until USA plays Canada, and they do not play in the group stage. They're in separate groups. But I am curious how interested people are going to be in this tournament because of how wildly successful the Four Nations face-off was this time last year.
So if you want to watch UC Saros and Eric Halla, that game is at 9:40. And if I've got this right, it's on USA. Is that right?
Let's see here. It is on Peacock and USA.
Okay. And then if you want to watch Mr. Forsberg,
Also on USA.
playing the host nation of Italy. I don't know what the Italian hockey team looks like. I don't know of any Italian hockey players, but Sweden would be a favorite, I would think. That's at 2:10. So that game will be going on when our show is going on.
So I'm sure we'll be watching it at the same time as our show. One texter says, so apparently the Pats offensive line had a tell that Seattle was keying off of that explains how they knew the play before the snap. The tell that Seahawks head coach Mike McDonald and his staff uncovered could be found along the offensive line. Witherspoon said the tape study revealed that the Patriots offensive linemen often show what they are going to do by how they line up. I believe I saw something about Will Campbell having a twitch every time the Patriots were going to run a pass play. Mm-hmm. This texter says, how the heck does this happen with no one picking up on it before this important of a game, especially for a Vrabel-led team?
Well, I mean, listen, when you're in a position like this, you're trying to find every, angle you can get to give you the upper hand. And a lot of times it is slight movement, how you line up, subtle things like that. And they may have thought about it, meaning the Patriots. But once you get in the game, man, you start getting into the flow. You can't. That's not something you could be thinking about every play. Like, I got to make sure I got to do that. No, you're concentrating on, what's making me comfortable so I can get my job done and try to do it at a high level. And they're not the first team, meaning Seattle, that have picked up on certain things that players are doing that may give them a slight advantage or may help them against their opponent. So this is not the first time and it won't be the last time. But I'm sure, like any team, you're going to critique yourself at the end of the season, meaning New England after this game. I'm sure Vrabel and they're probably in the offices now just breaking down film. But, this is something that probably the other teams saw too. But Seattle was a team that could truly take advantage of it. Because it's not like, Seattle was the only team that sacked him, 5 or more times. Everybody did. So it was like, y'all were just bad.
They were winning. Yeah.
Exactly. Y'all were just, the offensive line was just a bad offensive line. It wasn't really about, tipping it off or not. I still have to get to the quarterback, and they couldn't stop it. So whether you picked up on a slight, way he sort of stands when it's run or pass, you still had to beat them. And they did.
Mike Vrabel, by the way, standing by Will Campbell today, saying that the Patriots will keep him at left tackle, despite the fact that he allowed, according to the NFL, 14 pressures in the Super Bowl. That's a lot of pressures.
And it was adamant. But he is young. You figure he can get better. It's one game. It is so amazing now, though, how you are thought about is influenced by the game on the biggest stage. So I feel like even the fan base will be skeptical. I can't imagine he had that bad of a year as a rookie if they made it to the Super Bowl. So there's got to be some room for improvement.
Alex from Franklin does not mince words in this text message. He says, I know I'm late. Better late than never, Alex. I know I'm late, but I enjoyed every moment of Vrabel falling on his face in front of the whole world. Any Titans fans who rooted for Vrabel, go F yourself and never root for the Titans again.
Man, that was harsh.
Man.
Woo.
Tell us how you really feel,
Man,
Alex
you
from
came
Franklin.
in with a ginsu
Go
knife.
F yourself and never root for the Titans again.
Man. Well, we know how you feel about Vrabel. So
He went Ron Burgundy on the teleprompter.
He went straight at it.
Indeed. Indeed. We are taking you up to pregame, the Vanderbilt men's basketball team on the road at Auburn tonight, 5:30 pregame, 6 p.m. tip-off right here on 102.5 The Game. Vanderbilt coming off of a tough loss at home to Oklahoma over the weekend. Auburn favored by 3.5 at home. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Willie. Vanderbilt, since starting perfect, has lost 4 of 7. And this is an important stretch of games for Vanderbilt. Of their next 4 games, 3 are the highly prized quad 1 games. Tonight at Auburn, they are at home to Texas A&M, which is not a quad 1 game. They are at Missouri, which is, and then they host Tennessee, which is also a quad 1 game. The Commodores are 6-3 in quad 1 games this season. So how can the Commodores bounce back tonight at Auburn?
I think against Auburn, it is going to be a battle for every rebound. Auburn is not the best shooting team. They're, in fact, from the outside, from 3-point range, they're not a good shooting team. But there's an old time-tested way of getting offense, and it is called shoot it and go get it. Like if you make it, great. But if you miss it, hit the offensive boards. And Auburn can do that. And Vanderbilt is susceptible, especially when they get in foul trouble. And if you watch the Florida game, that's how Florida beat Vanderbilt at Vanderbilt. They crashed and killed them with second chance points. So when Vanderbilt rebounds as a team, they don't have one guy who's a glass eater, right? They don't have, they don't have that guy. But if they do a good job collectively and they get the boards and they keep that to a minimum, I think they can have them, they can put themselves in position. But when you're on the road, and I don't know what the status of Miles, we'll find out maybe during the pregame show when Kevin and Tim get going here, but I don't know if Miles or Collins will be back, either one of them. But let's say they're not. Sometimes on the road, it can be tough to get buckets. Now, Vanderbilt has had some very impressive road shooting games this year. Surprisingly good in some instances. They're going to need to hit some shots tonight, I think, to beat Auburn.
Yeah, if you just look at the stats of both of these teams, you would tend to think this team was very even. Vandy is a better defensive team when it comes to points against than Auburn, 4 points. They both shoot around the same field goal percentage. Rebounds, they're both pretty much the same. It's, to me, with Vandy, it's them not getting in foul trouble. Because I think not having Collins and Miles, it hurts them. It hurts him from a creativity standpoint because I think Miles can sort of create his own basket and do some things, and he's a little bit more physical. But they have to shoot well in the first half. Last game they didn't shoot well, and Oklahoma got up on them, and they made a run late. But that margin was too big going into half. So they shot extremely well in the second half, and in Alabama or Georgia didn't, but not in the first half. So they got to come out and they got to shoot well. They can't get in foul trouble. And the last half of each game, they have to play good basketball, the basketball that they're accustomed to playing. It just seems like in just about all their losses, they have this lull with them. And maybe it's because of the way they play defense. Maybe it's because of they get in foul trouble, but they tend to wear themselves down at the end of each half. So if they can come out and establish themselves and get a lead, I think it bodes well for them, because it didn't in their last game when they didn't come out. And they made a hell of a run the second half, but it was just too much.
I am concerned also about foul trouble because Auburn does get to the free throw line a relatively high amount of times. So that is a concern, because when you've watched Vanderbilt, there are games where it is an attrition battle.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, they have had some other guys give them some minutes off the bench, but it can hurt them. Okereke, McLaughlin, they always seem to be battling. Second foul in the first half, third foul early in the second half, pick up the fourth foul with 6-8 minutes to go. And it can compromise you on defense, and that goes to the offensive rebounding, right? If you got 4 fouls and it's a rebound and you're like, if I foul this guy, I'm out, that might give the edge to the other team and getting those second chance opportunities. So management of foul distribution will be important. This might be a game where they need basically the fourth big man to come in there. You know, you've got obviously McLaughlin, Okereke are going to play a lot. Those guys are a little undersized, right? We watch them. They create matchup problems on the offensive end, and they battle for their size, but they are a little bit undersized. And then you've got obviously they've got Jalen Washington, who is more the traditional big man. He's going to give them his minutes, but I've seen them have to go to Jaden Leverett, who is a freshman. He's 6'11", and I like when they can get him 6 to 10 minutes. And if he can give them some good minutes, this might be a game where you need him off the bench to give you some minutes to manage those fouls.
It was Oklahoma. I'm sorry, I'm getting the red jerseys mixed up. I said Alabama, said Georgia. It was Oklahoma. And they allowed Oklahoma to get out on them, and Oklahoma shot the lights out. But they didn't do a good job at shooting, meaning Vandy. And then when they did, the margin was too deep or too wide for them to come back, and they end up losing. So they gotta stay out of foul trouble, and they got to do a better job at ending halves, especially in their losses.
It has been interesting when they've not done well. You mentioned Adam, before they had lost the game, they had led for an incredibly high amount of time, right? That was they had come out of the gate really strong in so many of their games. And then it was a matter of, making the other team chase them. And they did have some lulls, but it always helps when you're in the driver's seat. When they've lost, it seems like they've gotten off to some poor starts and they've fallen behind. There may be that, it's odd how that's happened. But I would also like to hope that you get off to a good start tonight and you're not chasing the game. Even though in today's college basketball with the 30-second shot clock and the three-point shot as a weapon, a 20-point lead or 15-point lead is not what it used to be. But still, for this Vanderbilt team, I don't like the idea of coming out of the gate slow. They need a good start.
In their 2 losses within their last 5 games, they were down 15 or so against Oklahoma, and then they were down 11 against Arkansas.
Yeah.
And they ended up getting blown out in that game. But this is, I'm not sure, especially with the injuries too, if they get themselves in a deficit like that, not being a bigger team, meaning not having the length, getting themselves in foul trouble, are they capable of, coming back from a deficit that's more than 11, 12 points? In the second half, and each of their last 2 losses, Oklahoma and Arkansas, they were down 11 points or more.
A couple of people on our text line are insulted by Alex from Franklin, saying if you rooted for the Patriots in the Super Bowl, you should go F yourself and never root for the Titans again.
Man, that was harsh. I will admit that it was harsh.
But I recall a lot of Titans fans on Friday saying that they were pulling for Vrabel. and the New England Patriots. More so Vrabel than the Patriots by extension, but mostly Vrabel. Skyler says, I think it was wild that a Vrabel football team in the Super Bowl couldn't stop the run. Vrabel always talked about stopping the run. Kenneth Walker ran all over them. It was wild.
Well, that's because he's from Michigan State. That's why he ran all over.
Well,
Yeah, so
that's a given.
He's also from the great city of Memphis as well.
Yeah, you're
See?
right. There
Well,
you go. There you go. But
there you go.
I mean, I think they did all they could, that defense, and it just wore. The offensive line just wore on their defensive line because their offense couldn't generate anything.
That is true. Willie, you seem deep in thought over there, scrolling.
Well,
on your
I was just
computer.
looking to see if we could get any information of whether Miles and or Collins are going to play. That I haven't seen anything one or the other. So
How low do you think the Commodore ceiling is without the two of them?
well, I'd like to think that they're going to get those guys back eventually, but it's how much ground are you going to give? And they've been playing without Collins for weeks, so it's losing Collins and Miles that's catching up to them, I think, and they've done a reasonable job. Like they've won 3 out of 4, right? I know they've lost 4 out of 7, but they had the lull, they rebounded, and one of their most impressive wins is the way they dismantled Kentucky. They won that game without Miles and without Collins, so they're capable of doing it. But Miles does bring a lot to the table, and they had done a lot with him in there. That's the guy I hope is on the verge of coming back, but it's mysterious a little bit.
And we've seen Tyler Tanner, easy for me to say. We've seen Tyler Tanner show that he can put the team on his back. He had nearly 40 points the other day, almost single-handedly put Vanderbilt over the top against Oklahoma. It came up short. But as we had him on the show a couple of weeks ago, he and Duke Miles play so well off of each other. I have been incredibly impressed by the strides Tanner has made this season. He came out of nowhere, really, for the country at large.
Yeah.
But there is a limit to how much he can do without his backcourt mate.
Well, I think even we could say here that he's sort of surprised, because of what he's played like an elite point guard majority of the time, and especially in these last 5 games or 4, 3 games or so, he's played at a level that they've needed him to play. He's been able to elevate himself, and has elevated the team in a few of those wins. But I think even, I'm a little bit surprised at, how much better he's gotten from last year.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
He's made a huge leap. I think he's going to do his thing. He is that guy. I think he has become a guy that absolutely is the focal point. But they really love on offense. And look, they scored 91 points the other day. They didn't lose because they couldn't score without those guys. They lost because the defensive end that's where Byington really focused. He says that was our worst defensive game of the season. And so let's hope that with that being emphasized in practice the last couple of days, I'm sure that they give a better defensive effort tonight. They're going to need to because it's not easy to score 90 on the road. But what they do on offense, if you watch, they love to create the switches until they get the matchup they like. And when you don't have Miles in there, who is a matchup problem, he could, you get a weak matchup on him. He's really good one-on-one. He could get his own shot. He gets fouled. So it allows you, if he's not there, that's one less guy that you got to worry about. Maybe you focus a little more on taking Nickel away. And Nickel is a guy that, can he drive a little bit? He can drive just well enough, right, to get some mid-range shots if you watch him. But he's a guy that would much rather watch somebody get double-teamed, spot up, you kick it to him. He's got that quick release. That's where he's most effective. But if you can take a guy and say, you stay on Nickel, Miles isn't there, we'll deal with Tanner other ways, then Vanderbilt becomes a little bit more guardable. Like when you have Nickel and Miles in there with Tanner, that's tough to match up with all those guys. So that's what I think is missing in terms of the gear. Plus, Miles is a really good on-ball defender as well. So you lose that with him out. So this is one where you're just going to have to tread water here. As you mentioned, Adam, there's some tricky games coming up. You still got 2 games with Tennessee. So you were asking, what's the ceiling? I think there's still a lot to be proven on where they're going to end up. Are they still a team that could rebound, get back to playing great ball, and be a 3 or a 4 seed? Or are they, going to have to be treading water and slip to a 6 or a 7? I could see either one happening, depending on the health and just how they deal with all of this.
I was hoping we would have these Super Bowl ratings by now. I'm kind of surprised we don't.
Really?
Yeah. We don't have the Super Bowl ratings yet.
They're not out.
Why?
Wow.
What's the delay?
I don't know.
We usually have this thing overnight.
Exactly. Bam, right on the table. Boom.
I think
The next day.
I think a lot of people are waiting to see more specifically what the halftime ratings were.
Well, I mean, they had about 180-some thousand viewers or 70-some thousand viewers, so I'm sure they were high. Regardless.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what the ratings were. I'm not a huge ratings person generally.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you like what you like. If you want to watch it, it's great. If other people don't watch it, that's their problem.
Mm-hmm.
But with the Super Bowl, I'm always fascinated by the matchup and how that skews ratings and the halftime performance. So maybe by the time we're on the air tomorrow at 3.
And then the fact that it's 19-0 late, maybe you have some people that were.
Yeah, where does the game peak? I'm always interested in that, where the game peaks. Jeff says, did y'all miss the brawl that happened last night in the Pistons and Hornets game? No, I did not.
Yeah, I saw that.
That was wild.
I don't, man, y'all must really hate each other. I wonder what was said for y'all to kind of do what y'all did. It's like, man, I'm sure they will get suspended for a couple games.
More than a couple.
I know, but I'm just saying a couple
games. And why does this thing always follow around the Pistons,
I don't know, man.
Derek Mason?
I don't know.
That bad boy DNA?
We don't take no, that's what it is.
It's
man.
always the Pistons. It
We don't
doesn't
take
matter
no,
if it's Malice at the Palace or a game in Charlotte on a random Monday in February.
Listen, we won't start it, but we damn sure will finish it.
I think the Pistons actually did start this one.
I don't know about that.
Jalen Duren putting his hand in someone's face.
Yeah.
That might start something.
Because his breath was stinking. Get out of my face, man.
Bias. Detroit
Yeah,
bias.
But no, it was wrong. It was wrong.
Yes.
They shouldn't. I don't know what they were thinking. They both, or all, whoever was a part of it, needs to be suspended for a significant amount of time.
That'll do it for us today. Vanderbilt basketball pregame coming up at 5:30. The Commodores are at the Auburn Tigers, looking to bounce back from their loss at home to Oklahoma over the weekend. We will be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Have a wonderful rest of your day, if I can get it out there. Enjoy this wonderful weather while it lasts, and we'll talk to you tomorrow at 3.
Be loved, love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful day. I love you. The team loves you. You hear that music? Don't you forget about us, because we will not forget about you. See you tomorrow. Y'all better listen. I'm going to be taking notes. So who's not listening? I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I'm going to do it. All right? So we'll see you tomorrow at 3 p.m. on 102.5 The Game. Peace.